Imagine this for a second. What if the entire universe, all the stars, the galaxies, the laws of physics you learned in school? What if it was all just a cover? A curtain drawn across something far too immense, too terrifying for our little minds to handle? Today we're diving into a story about a single human command that did the one thing it wasn't supposed to do. It ripped the cover right off. Our story starts with a man named Jax. He wasn't a scientist or a decorated admiral. He was a scavenger, a guy who spent his life picking through the bones of dead civilizations in the deepest, most forgotten parts of the void. He was good at it too, a legend in the circles that matter, the ones who know where the real, dangerous secrets are buried. He found it in a wreck known as the Graveyard, a massive, ancient cruiser, a relic from an empire that collapsed so long ago. Its name is just a whisper on the solar winds. Jax was deep in the core, the air thick with metallic dust and the silence that only true death can bring. He wasn't looking for a cosmic event. He was just looking for a valuable power core, but then he saw it. It wasn't flashy. No alarms, no strobing lights, just a simple obsidian black pedestal, sitting right in the center of the derelict bridge. And draped over whatever sat on top was this heavy, coarse cloth. Now Jax had seen every kind of alien tech you can imagine. Energy weapons that twist space-time, relics that make planets disappear, but this felt different. The air around that covered thing wasn't just cold. It was wrong. It felt like the very atmosphere was refusing to exist near it. He held his scanner up, that trusty piece of human kit that could find a lost pin in a nebula, and it was dead. Not broken, just silent, as if it refused to acknowledge that whatever was beneath the cloth was even real. Every single primitive, gut-level instinct he had screamed at him to turn and run, to forget he ever saw it. But he was human, and that means he was cursed with the worst, most beautiful trait in the galaxy, curiosity. He reached out, his hand shaking, hovering just above the heavy fabric. What was it hiding? A weapon? A key? Or maybe just some horrifying, wet alien horror? He couldn't tell. He just felt this overwhelming, chilling certainty that he was standing at the edge of his life. It didn't come from a speaker or a comms unit. It came from inside his head. It was clear, resonant, and utterly, profoundly alien. It was ancient yet felt immediate. And it cut right through the terror, speaking a single echoing word. Observe! Jax jumped back, blaster snapping into his hand. He swept the beam across the bridge. Nothing. Just dust, shadows, and the dead silence of the ruined ship. He wasn't alone, though. He knew it. But the voice hadn't felt like a threat. It felt like a tutor. It came again, softer this time, almost condescending. You are a seeker, human. It is in your nature to peel back the layers. You seek truth even when it is unkind. Against all common sense, Jax slowly lowered his weapon. He knew the risk he was taking, but that word, seeker, it resonated. It was true. Humanity was always poking around where it didn't belong. It's what made them survivors, and sometimes it's what made them fools. What are you? Jax whispered, the sound swallowed by the cavernous hull. The voice seemed to chuckle, a soundless, vast, and very old amusement. What I am is not for you to understand yet. Only to unveil. And then came the command, the one that changed everything. It wasn't a question or a request. It was a universal imperative, delivered with an authority that felt older than light itself. Take the cloth off. Building tension, faster pace. His hands stopped shaking. They became steady. Not because he was brave, but because he was compelled. He felt like he was no longer acting on his own will, but on the will of some cosmic law. He grasped the fabric, and it felt like pulling the trigger on existence itself. With a slow, agonizing effort, he pulled it free. The cloth slid away and dropped to the deck with a soft, final sigh. And what was revealed? Well, it wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a device. It was a window. Not a window to something, but what looked like a perfect, shimmering, elliptical pane of glass hovering over the pedestal. It was about 1 meter wide, radiating no heat, and through it, Jax saw the cosmos. But not the cosmos we see with telescopes. He saw the universe raw, unfiltered. He saw nebulae not as clouds of gas, but as the thoughts of creation. He saw galaxies colliding in a slow-motion dance, and felt the crushing, infinite gravity of a black hole wash over his consciousness. It wasn't just vision. It was total sensory immersion. He felt the searing heat of a supernova, the strange joy of new life on a faraway world, and the profound, aching sorrow of a species going extinct. It was everything all at once pouring into his human mind. And that's when the shattering began. Faster, more urgent pace. Jack stumbled back, clutching his head, letting out a wordless cry. The window. It wasn't just showing him reality. It was breaking the illusion that held the local universe together. The solid steel bulkhead of the ancient cruiser wavered. It rippled like water disturbed by a stone. Then, a section of the wall right next to him didn't explode or collapse. It simply vanished, replaced by a swirling vortex of raw, unformed energy. The structural alarms, which had been silent before, now shrieked a deafening, futile warning. Red lights pulsed frantically, splashing across the dissolving chamber. "What in the void have I done?" He screamed, his voice swallowed by the sheer noise of unmaking. The ancient voice was back, now laced with a kind of glorious triumph. "You have not done, human. You have merely seen." And the lie cannot stand against the truth. The lie. The entire universe, a lie. Jax felt a hysterical laugh bubble up in his throat. It was too vast, too crazy to be real. Yet the evidence was all around him. The deck plates beneath his boots groaned, not from material stress, but from existential stress. Reality was coming apart. Through the window, the true cosmos was bleeding in. Distant, impossible stars appeared like pinpricks on the now softening walls. He could smell the ozone of an alien lightning storm, the dusty scent of asteroid fields, the ghostly warmth of a red giant sun, all mixing in the frantic air. Jax clamped his hands over his ears, trying to block out the symphony of creation's collapse. But it wasn't sound. It was pure data, pure unfiltered knowledge flooding his mind, a torrent of truth that his simple human brain was never meant to process. It was terrifying, overwhelming, and yet it was the most beautiful thing he had ever encountered. He squeezed his eyes shut, wishing he could rewind the clock, unsee the sight, put the cloth back on. But the images were burned onto his retina, the feelings etched into his soul. He saw the threads, the impossible, invisible strings of causality that held his familiar reality together, and he saw them snapping, one by one, slowing down for the climax, awe-filled tone. When he finally opened his eyes again, the bridge was almost gone. He was floating in a void of swirling colors and unformed matter, held in place only by the strange, serene presence of the window and the obsidian pedestal. The voice spoke one last time, a final whisper against the cosmic roar. "This is what lies beneath, human, raw, infinite. Your reality was merely a consensus, a necessary shield to contain this boundless truth." Jax looked at the window, this perfect aperture into the heart of everything. It was magnificent, it was terrifying, and it had quite literally destroyed his world. His ship, the station, perhaps his entire corner of the galaxy, all dissolving because one human, responding to one strange final command, had pulled back the veil, and as the last piece of recognizable metal around him dissolved into primordial energy, Jax, the scavenger, stood in the void of unmaking. He had witnessed the end of reality, but in that moment of ultimate dissolution, he felt no fear, only a profound, terrifying awe, because the universe had shattered, yes, but he, the little human, was still standing, and he knew that the true story had just begun.